Good morning. It's good to see you all here. Amen. Want to make sure that you are aware of a couple things. Coming up, we have Pie with the Pastors. This is for individuals. If you've been here about 6 months or so, and it's a time for you to get to know who we are a little bit, you can show up, get a piece of pie, meet the leadership of the church, ask questions, find out how you can get involved and things. It's just a time of fellowship, just some fun. I want to encourage you to come to that. There's a sign-up sheet. Well, there was. They can sign up online, right? You can sign up online. The sign sheet up, well, it's back there, but it's not back there anymore. But you can see us. We can give you more information on that. Just a little evening thing that we can spend some time. You get to know us. We get to know you. So please be aware of that. Coming up, if you have a child that's in 3rd through 5th grade, in that age group, there is KidCon coming up. You're sure to get more information from the leadership downstairs on their car cards, so take a look at that. It's a one-day event where they go and have a little kids convention just for them. And they have a whole bunch of kids from all over, and they come together, and it's a great time just to have some fellowship, even for that age. So I want to encourage you to be a part of that, part of the family that's doing that. Also, one of our family values is the understanding of giving and being a participant in what the church is doing. We do that through tithes and offerings. Our tithes are what meets the house's needs. The electricity keeps the heat going, helps us have salt on the stairs so we don't slip as we come in. All those things come out of the tithes. And offerings are above and beyond that, the missions forwards giving. I want to encourage you to be faithful in those things. Josh, we are ready for you. Come and have some blessed time for all of us, and don't scare us too much. Maybe a little bit.
I guess I can be scary. Depends on if I looked in the mirror today. I didn't feel like I was that scary. I just figured the look when Jennifer goes, huh, when she sees me in the mirror, I just figure that's just, marriage or maybe my breath. I don't know. But no, good to see you guys. So glad you're here with us this morning. It's a good day. We've been talking about training to win, right? Training to win, to follow Jesus, and how we train to win, how we set up our lives in following Jesus as a way to win. And so last week we talked about the sin that holds us back. We were in Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 through the first part of 2, really, which says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up. And let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. And we do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith." And Jesus is the ultimate champion, right? He came, he lived a sinless life, he beat sin, he beat death, he beat the grave, he rose, and then he turned and he said, okay, now it's your job to continue to go forward. Your mission is to go out to be my disciples, and as you're being my disciples, you're teaching other people to be my disciples. That's your job. I kind of think of it actually, I don't know if you think about this, but when Jesus left, when he ascended to heaven and he gave that great commission, right, to go into all the world and make disciples, I don't know if you're like me, but as a parent, sometimes when I leave the house, I give instructions to the kids, when you're going to leave. And, it usually comes with, if when I get home, this still looks like this, there will be trouble, right? Jesus didn't quite give us that. But his statement there as he's leaving in that Great Commission moment is one of, hey, while I'm gone, while I'm out, this is what you are supposed to be doing. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to stand before him one day and him literally look at me and go, you had one job. Right? Because that's, in that moment, that's what it would be, because that is what we're called to do. And that's why training to win is so important. It's why becoming a good apprentice of Jesus is such an important part of our lives, because we need to do those things, because if we don't train to win and train to be an apprentice of Jesus, there's no way we can train someone else how to do it. Those of you who work jobs that involve apprenticeship, you would never bring in a newbie and stick them with another newbie to learn how to do the job. You're just going to have two people that mess everything up, right? That's why we need to train. It's why we need to learn how to grow in our faith and grow in the things that we do, even when it's inconvenient and even when it goes against culture. This week we're going to talk about another aspect of training to win, and that's the practice of the Sabbath. Sabbath means to cease or to rest. Exodus 20, verse 8. It says this, "Remember to observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. You have 6 days each week for your ordinary work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath day of rest, dedicated to the Lord your God. On that day, no one in your household may do any work. This includes you, your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, your livestock, and any foreigners living among you. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and everything in them. But on the seventh day he rested. That is why the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and set it apart as holy." The concept of Sabbath is all over the Bible, right? That passage right there is part of the Ten Commandments, but it originates in creation. It said God spent 6 days creating the world, and on the seventh day he rested. Now there's some things we need to understand. God didn't rest because God was tired. God is all powerful. He doesn't need to rest. But he did it to teach us something, to set about a rhythm for life in this world that was important, to work for 6 and to rest and enjoy for 1. And we're made in God's image, so it works best when we follow his design. If we want our life to flourish, if we want to be the best version of ourselves that we can be through God, then we need to follow the things that he has called us to do. Sabbath was the culmination of God's creation. Genesis 2, 2 and 3, it says this, "On the seventh day God had finished his work, so he rested from all his work. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, because it was the day when he rested from all his work of creation." God stopped working and enjoyed it. 6 days of effort, 1 day to reflect, enjoy, and experience the results. Right? I don't know if you like to, whatever your creative outlet is, we all have a different one, right? Some of you guys bake, some people paint, some people build, whatever it is. But you don't generally go, like, nobody bakes like a wonderful cake that's just going to be amazing. Oh, I know a lot of you guys are fasting and stuff and sugar, so this is going to be an even more good example. That was terrible grammar too, wasn't it? More good. My kids are in trouble. All right. But listen, so there's just, those cakes that, like, they look good and they taste even better? Right? You know what I'm talking about? By the lack of this, I don't know if some of you do. You need to get out a little more, I guess. I don't know. But these cakes, and if you made one of those, you wouldn't, like, make it, set it down, and then just go start making another cake. Right? If you put all that hard work and time and energy into it, you wouldn't just go, all right, and then go on to the next thing. No, you want to enjoy the cake, right? You want to enjoy the thing that you made. If you build something, you don't build it and then go, all right, and then off to the next. No, you want to enjoy it for a moment. There's an element of enjoyment that comes from that, and that's what God did with creation. He created it, and every day as he's creating everything, he's saying, it's good. Right? I'm making it, and it's good. I'm making it, and it's good. But on that seventh day, it's like he totally stepped back and said, okay, today now I'm enjoying everything I've done. I've worked these 6 days. I have designed the earth and the cosmos and everything else, and it's so awesome because he's a creator. He's a creative person. Our desire to create and our creative things, those are outflows of the image of God in our lives. But he stepped back because every person who creates at some point should step back and look at what they're creating and go, I like it. That's good, right? I'll be honest, sometimes I create things and I step back and go, I should have spent a little more time. Thoughts, right? But God didn't. God did it perfectly. But that rhythm of stepping back and enjoying is something that God wants us to understand. It's how he designed humans to win. One of the biggest keys in sports and one of the secrets of winning is to follow the plays that the coach calls, right? To follow the coach's play and to run it the way the coach designed it and the way the coach drew it up. We've seen the result at different times in sporting events where there is a disconnect between player and coach and where the players want to do their own thing and don't want to follow what the coach does. It doesn't turn out well. There's chaos. Coaches oftentimes know things and see things differently than players do. When I played high school football, we had a coach who would always be sitting up in the booth, up above the stands. He was sitting up high, looking down, and he was, via communication with other coaches, talking about what they saw, so that they could call plays based on what they saw, because they had better information than a person just standing on the field looking out. They understood better. It's the same way with God, that God understands better. He understands better than we do. And so when we say, that I understand that's your way, God, but I'm going to do it my way, we're essentially telling God, you know what, thanks, God, but I know better. The winning oftentimes is to follow the coach's play and to do the things that we need to do. And when we practice Sabbath, we run God's play for our time. It's countercultural, though, isn't it? To win by stopping, to rest, to serve, to pause, and to worship. That's counter to our culture. It was counter to culture when God gave them the Sabbath. Do you understand that in Jewish culture, everyone around them worked 7 days. They were the only ones who stopped, who worked for 6 and took a day off. It made them weird, even in the culture where they were. It made them weird. But God understood something that the rest of culture didn't. Sabbath shows that we're not defined by how much we can accomplish or how much we can consume. God's people are defined by putting their trust and confidence in God's plan. Sabbath is a witness to the world that we trust in God more than what we can produce or what comforts we can consume. Producing and consuming are not the way to peace and a good life. Following Jesus is the only way to a good life and true peace. I don't know about you, but true peace sounds great, doesn't it? Because we live in a culture that's desperately seeking for this, desperately searching for it. And it's exhausting trying to keep up with culture's idea of what peace looks like or what people need to do, right? If you're on social media and you scroll through Reels, you will see people, oh, this is how I learned to cook this way, and this is all the cool DIY projects that I did this way, and these are all the awesome vacations that my family does this way, and these are all the events and things that my kids do this way. And we sit back and we look at culture and we go, I have to do all of this stuff in order to have the best life ever. I don't want my kids to miss out on anything, so I'm going to work like crazy to make sure that they get every little whim and get to do everything they want to do, and we take all the greatest vacations that we could ever want to do. Or I can't ever sleep because I have to do all this stuff because this is how we're supposed to live, and this is how we're supposed to eat, or this is how we're supposed to do, and all of that stuff. And we wear ourselves out because in order to live the way that social media oftentimes would dictate our house look, our food look, our kids look, our vacations look, our schedules look, we would never sleep. What we often fail to realize is the people who are the most successful at that are getting paid to do those things. Every once in a while, one of them will be honest and go, here's my kitchen in the shot, and then they'll pan it over, and you'll see everything pushed out of the view of the camera. I appreciate their honesty. Because most of us look at those things and go, there's no way. And yet God called us to a good life and true peace. True peace involves rest. If you're not resting, then you're never going to have peace. You're going to be exhausted. Exhausted people make poor decisions. Exhausted people fall to sin and temptation way easier. Exhausted people are sometimes really hard to be around. Overly pessimistic. I understand when it comes to the Sabbath, there's a spectrum between workaholism and laziness, right? God said, I gave you 6 days for your work and 1 day to rest and to enjoy. So some people, you're the workaholic, you're over here, and you're like 24/7, 365. I'm earning money, I'm doing my thing, I got my job, my side hustles, I'm doing all this stuff, and you're just like, and then, people talk about taking a day off, and you're like, lazy person, what the heck is wrong with you? Like, people, I can sleep when I'm dead kind of thing, right? That's what I'm doing. My wife's over here trying not to make eye contact with me. Then you've got the people over here who, like, work is something they might be allergic to. They live for comfort, right? But in the bare minimum, man, whenever I get done with whatever those little things are that I have to do, like, you live for comfort and you live for those things and you live for rest and laziness and all of that kind of stuff. It's just a part of you. So Sabbath takes intentionality for the workaholic and for the lazy person, because some people you need to look and go, you know what? I got 6 days to work, and right now I'm doing like 3. Everything done, but I got 7 days worth of stuff I got to do. It fits into both. The Sabbath is a call to both sides of the equation. This is not just like if you're a workaholic, you're bad. No, if you're a lazy person, you're bad. And the Bible talks about that too. Do you understand? And this is on me too, because I am horrible at this. I've gotten better as I've gotten older. But procrastination is sinful. Do you know that? The Bible says, go to the ant and consider her ways. Think about how the ant works. It stores up and it works. It pretty much does what it needs to do in the time that it's given, so that when it's no longer possible, they're not struggling to try and figure out how to do that, right? They gather food. Especially if you all saw Bug's Life as kids, right? They gather food so that when winter comes, they have enough to eat. Are we doing the things that we need to do when we need to do them? That we're not putting stuff off until, we'll get around to it. Versus the person that just has to continuously come up with it. Wife for a moment, because she's a good sport. My wife is somebody who falls more towards the workaholic side of this spectrum. Not forcing myself into anything would shift more towards the laziness side of the spectrum. But I remember there was a time when Jen was going super hard working. She was working 5 days a week at her job. Every weekend she was doing street therapy. At one point, we had to have something fixed in our house, which of course costs money, right? Nobody likes to do that. Get it fixed, and then a couple days later she gets up and she comes in, and I'm still in bed, and she goes, the hot water in the house is not working. All right, well, in a little bit when I get up, I'll take care of it. It's still because I hadn't gone to sleep. But so I get up a little bit later that day, and I come out and I try the faucets, and the hot water is working just fine. Sometimes she goes, did you figure out what was wrong with the hot water? And I was like, there's nothing wrong with the hot water. It's coming out. It's fine. I was about some stuff, and all of a sudden she comes, she goes, it's not working again, Josh. The hot water's not working. And I look at her, and I'm like, I walk over and I do something with it, and I'm like, no, it seems like it's working just fine to me. She looks at me, and she goes, what side is the hot water on? I looked at her, I said, it's on the left side, always on the left side. You guys laugh now, but there was a moment of panic that came over my wife when she goes, what do you think is wrong with me? Why don't I know that? And I said, because you are working too much. I don't rarely do the whole put my foot down kind of a thing. I looked at her, I said, do the street fair this weekend because it was like Thursday. That's what's going on. You don't have any problem with your brain. That was a symptom of. It was a cause of just overexhaustion, right? I'm assuming a lot of you are laughing, but I'm assuming a lot of you have been in that same boat where you've experienced things in your life based on overexhaustion. And if the worst thing you forget in a moment of overexhaustion is what side the hot water's on, you're really doing really good. I'm sure if we delved into the medical side of it, there's a lot of medical things that would pop up from overexhaustion. And that's because it's not God's design for us. It wasn't what God wanted for us. He wanted us to rest, and He wanted us not only to just rest. Sabbath is not just about us stopping and not working, but it's about us experiencing joy in Him too. The 4 rules for the Sabbath. You'll see there's a lot of blanks there, and I know some of you who are like, I need to know the exact wording to put down. Can I just apologize to you now? You're going to be a little mad at me. Because the first word is the word that goes there. Everything else is kind of what keys into you and things that I say after. Like, If you come up to me afterwards and go, after you said this word, what are all the things that went after it? I'm going to tell you, I don't know, they're different for everybody. And you might just have to pray through you and forgive me later. 4 rules for the Sabbath. The first one is to cease. To stop working, stop the task, stop obligations, stop worry. Jesus said, listen, stop worrying about tomorrow's trouble. Today has enough trouble for itself, and tomorrow's going to bring its own. And you're like, thanks, that's encouraging, Jesus. But he's saying, stop worrying about all the things in the future that could potentially go wrong. Focus on the problem at hand today, right? So on a Sabbath day, you know what? I'm going to deal with that problem that I can't even fix right now anyway. I'm not going to spend the whole day worrying about it. But I'm going to say no to certain obligations because they're not actually things I have to be at when I Sabbath. I'm going to pull back a little bit. I'm going to say no to certain things. It's okay to say no. I have my permission to upset people. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it does. I don't know. Upset people by saying, no, we're not going to be at that. Stop work to stop tasks. The second thing there is to rest. Now, rest doesn't just mean the same thing for everybody. It could be a nap. That could be resting. For some people, it's a creative outlet. It's a fun project. It's a game night. It's a do not disturb mentality. Hey, we're just going to be home. No one call unless someone's dead. And even then, you could call me the next day because they're still going to be dead. That'll be an email. Okay. All right. No, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's that you just kind of pull back. What helps you rest? What are the ways that you find rest? For some people, that might be a nap. For other of you, that's gathering around with a few people that charge you up, that recharge your batteries, that help you have fun, that it's having a game night with your family, that it's doing a fun project. What helps you do that? That we worship during a Sabbath. Prayer, Bible study, scripture meditation, singing, talking about God, ministering to, being ministered to, and ministering to other people. Worshiping God in community, meeting together with other believers is a crucial part of that. Most of you are here. For most people, Sunday would be their Sabbath day. And you're here, and this is part of your Sabbath expression. You say, I came, and we corporately worshiped, and we listened, and we meditated on Scripture, and we thought about the things that the pastor talked about, and we do all that kind of stuff. That it's part of it. Sabbath doesn't just mean that you have to sit like a bump on a log, though, and not do anything. As a matter of fact, that sounds awful to most people. Do things that recharge you, that help you to experience. The fourth word is delight. Delight. What is something you delight in? Enjoy yourself a little bit. It's okay. You have fun permission to enjoy yourself. But you know what I'm saying? Like, to split that into a rhythm and say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to set up a day where this is how it works for me and for my family. Parents, we have to teach our kids these rhythms because culture will teach them something else. There is absolutely nothing wrong with working hard. As a matter of fact, it's a biblically admirable trait. God is all for working. As a matter of fact, he does it. Sabbath portion is equally important to him. He doesn't just say, I want you to take a day to rest. He says, I want you to take a day and set that day apart as holy. That is something that we do to do it that way. So how do we do that? What does that look like in our lives? First, we have to make a plan to do it. You have to plan to Sabbath. But don't wait till it's perfect. If you wait till it's perfect, if you wait till everything falls into place, you'll never start. So start now. Start finding ways. Even if you can't start with a full day, start figuring it out. Get the whole family involved. Let everyone contribute. What does that look like? Hey, what would help you feel rested and refreshed and closer to God? Maybe that's your family goes on a hike. For me, that would be restful. or to get in a car and drive through someplace where there's some scenic view where I see the beauty of what God created, that helps me rest and helps me meditate on God's word and helps me think about him because I look out at what he created and I went, man, that's beautiful. Cool. Maybe that's not what works for you. Maybe your family's like, hey, we're super intellectual. Then sit down and have a conversation about God. One of the pastors at our church, we were talking about this, and they said a lot of times on Sabbath, they'll sit down and have a conversation about like who's their favorite Bible hero and why, and they just have they have some spiritual conversations about that kind of stuff. But get the family involved, and that doesn't mean you have to let your kids drive the whole thing, but that we listen to each other and we take into account those things. We set apart a day as holy. We protect your Sabbath and devote it to God. And we know the answer that I don't have time. I don't have time. You can't afford not to. You need time in your week to stop, to rest, to worship, and to delight in the blessings that God has given you. Sabbath recognizes that all of the time we have is actually a gift from God, and we can trust him with our time. In the same way that tithing shows our commitment to God with our finances, Sabbath shows our commitment to God with our time. That all of it's a gift from God, right? Every day we wake up is a gift from God. And so God says there's 7 days in a week. I'm asking for one. And sometimes when we look at it that way, it feels a lot different. And we're like, oh, I have to take a day off and do that all, like that feels terrible. And God goes, look, I gave you 7. All I'm asking is that you give me one. We're like, oh, well, really? And he's like, well, I did send my son to die for you. Not that God's petty like that, but it's a response to understanding what he did for us. What he did for us as we look at our lives, and so often, and we go, and so many times how many people go, I wish I had a closer relationship with God, right? But if you look at your schedule, there is no place and there's no time in it for Sabbathing. That's part of how you have a closer relationship with God, is that you take a day where you dedicate time to that. Where it's a dedicated moment where you're like, today we're not working. Today I'm going to enjoy my family. Today I'm going to enjoy the things that I like to do, but I'm also going to spend time enjoying God. Enjoying my relationship with God, that I'm going to crack my Bible open, I'm going to read, I'm going to put some worship music on, I'm going to sit there, I'm going to pray, I'm going to talk to him, and I'm just going to say, God, like I want to hear from you. Ephesians 5:15 through 17 says, look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of the time because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. God's will is that you would Sabbath. God's will is that you would do those things. That you would be somebody who says, I want to delight in the Lord. I want to rest. As the worship team comes back up, I want to encourage you, if you guys came in today, in the handout, you'll see there's a response card in there. If you didn't grab a handout, we have some response cards on the tables in the back, so you can go ahead and grab one of those and fill that out. But on this card, as the band leads us this next song, I want you to prayerfully consider, what would your response be to a message like this? What would your response be? Maybe today your response is, you know what, I just need to choose to follow Jesus. I don't know Jesus, but you talked about peace and a life of peace, and like, I want that. Check that. Maybe your box is, you're saying, you know what, I'm struggling to believe that I could Sabbath. Like, I'm going to try, but I'm really struggling with that thought. Maybe you're in I've tried to Sabbath, but I haven't been consistent. Like, this isn't the first time I've heard someone teach on this, but I'm struggling to want to do that, and I need help. Or the fourth one that says, I commit to a weekly Sabbath in 2025. You're like, I'm making a commitment that this is what I'm going to do. Again, it takes planning, it takes intentionality. And I'd love to stand before you and tell you that, hey, I'm the best at this too, but we're still working on this. We're still working on trying to get this thing, and we're doing it. But it takes planning. But don't look at what God has for you and say, that's too hard and I can't do it. but commit to starting. Commit to getting started. So as they lead us in that, would you just prayerfully consider a response?